You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
This makes my nipples hard.
Hey there, classic gaming friends. Welcome to the show. In today's episode, Paul and I will be chatting about a game that actually jumped pretty high on my list pretty quickly, and that would be Thimbleweed Park. And that's a game that was done by somebody that we might know, right?
Willie's Wet Walrus. Willie's Wet Walrus. That's how I get warmed up, everybody. We're just getting my vocal cords going. We're doing Thimbleweed Park because I love this game, and Anna might too. We'll all find out together in a minute if she liked it. But I'm excited because we never really did an episode on this. If you have like a weird, vague, like, didn't they maybe do this a long time ago when Rick was here? Sort of. Sort of. We did an episode about fourth walls that kind of just turned into a Thimbleweed thing, but that was bloody years ago. Okay, we've had different presidents and pandemics and just all kinds of just nonsense since that episode. We're here to properly focus on Thimbleweed Park, and Anna just played it. And what'd you think of it?
Well, it was a really good game. What I was trying to say earlier. When I got all befuddled, I had it all memorized and I dropped it, right? It's a game by Terrible Toy Box, who's a company that was made up by Ron Gilbert and Gary Gwinnick. And we must remember them from such fond memories as Monkey Island, even heck, the Humongous games for Ron Gilbert, a lot of the LucasArts stuff. And there were a lot of artists that you might also have recollection of in this game. So Mark Ferrari was in there. Anyways, yes, it was a beautiful game, stunningly beautiful. I really, really liked it. And I'm really looking forward to talking about the details and sharing it with everybody who's listening, whether you've played the game or not. I think, there's so much to talk about in this game that you really want to hear about. So stick around.
Mm-hmm. Or don't. You are free to leave at any time. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of media out here. You can do whatever you want. But we're going to be here talking about this for the next 23 to 58 minutes. And I'll just say we're going to approach this in a... This review is going to be a placeholder for you having played it. That didn't make sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, hold on. What else? How do you make sense and how to make it?
We're going to guide you through the excitement that we found in Thimbleweed Park from our perspectives, because you can go anywhere you want to learn about the game, but this is the only place you can go to hear about what Anna and Paul thought and what our experiences were of the game. So this is what we're here to go through together.
And we're gonna go through each part of the game so that if you haven't played it and you're just like, dude, fuck it, I'm probably never gonna play it, just tell me about it. So if you want to vicariously experience this game without having to play it, then this is the spot to do it. Because it is hard to draw a line with like spoilers and giving the audience a chance to have played the game. And how do you do a review where you're trying to block spoilers, especially with a game like this? And I think Anna and I have just concluded we're gonna talk about the game as an experience, and the listeners, you guys will hopefully get to experience the game through us talking about it. And we will keep an effort, just because the ending of this game is like a big spoiler. If you haven't played it, then you still probably know that, or like have heard, hear tales that their ending is, I don't know why that got all Southern there. That was very reflexive and weird. But the point is that we'll try and keep the ending of the game and the big spoilers to the end of this episode, basically, to a part that you could just turn off and not have to hear it if you don't want to. But other than that, we're not going to really like hold back and such. We're going to approach it like you've either played it or you've resigned to just learning about it through us. Oh, that's what I should have said. That was neat and tidy.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's a good one.
Too bad. So,
yeah. So come on over, y'all. Let's talk about Thimbleweed Park together.
Yes.
Part 1, meeting.
The meeting, yes. There's a weird Southern like overtone to this episode. Now, come on over here. I'll crack open a beer and sit on my lap. We're going to talk about Part 1, the meeting.
That's right. Put on the grits. We're probably offending somebody somewhere, but we're probably making somebody else laugh somewhere else. It evens out in the end. It is a podcast. It's all right.
And those two people should fight each other to death. And whoever wins tells us whether we could keep saying that stuff that we said back there. Okay. All right. Let's start at the beginning. So this game is about, well, That's actually pretty complicated. but
Yeah.
to try and to how would you kind of, the back of the book would be like, it's about a small town, like a Twin Peaks kind of vibe town, a weird town. I'm saying town too much because I'm panicking, because I committed to saying something I'm not prepared to say. But the basic idea here is there's a murder, and I can tell you who got murdered. His name was Boris Schultz. Perhaps that might be his name. Now, granted, an AI told me that, and they're wrong a lot. So I don't look who got murdered is surprisingly unimportant in this game. That's the first thing you got to know, is that we're here to solve a murder that doesn't matter. And these two
But
agents.
You don't know.
Yeah, please.
Oh, you don't know who he is at the beginning, but it's not like a big spoiler. But like these two agents, I'm stealing it from you, but I need to say it. They came up, and then all of a sudden they brought me into the game when they're looking at this dead body in the ground, and everything's cool, and you're like, oh yeah, typical detective mystery. And then one of them was like, the body's starting to pixelate. And I'm like, oh, is this what's happening here? Because like right at that moment, it kind of sets this like fourth wall breaking kind of a tone.
Right. And there is a lot of that. And I would say that if you don't like fourth wall breaking, to avoid this game, but that's actually not true. If you don't like fourth wall breaking, just go to the menu options and turn that shit off in this game. That's how brilliantly programmed the Thimbleweed Park really is. There's literally in the options you can turn off what they call annoying in-jokes. And you can just turn it off and you don't have to deal with it. Because they're going to ridicule Sierra. There's just going to be a point in the game where you pick up a piece of glass in the refrigerator and just Dolores is going to be right on the nose with it and just look in the camera and be like, if this was a Sierra online game, I'd be dead. And I was like, wow, guys, like that kind of, that hurt my feelings. Me, somebody who didn't work for Sierra. But you can just turn all that stuff off. And what you can also do in the menus is change the direction of the toilet paper. Because Ron drew toilet paper the wrong way, and everybody gave him a bunch of shit about it. So he I shouldn't say instead of fixing it, but on top of fixing it, he also made it a menu option, so you can have the toilet sheet, the paper come from the top, from the front of the roll, or from the back of the roll. And if you're wondering, like, what do I consider wrong, and what did Ron do originally that was considered wrong, would be with the toilet paper on the back of the roll, like closer to the wall. And I think it should be closer to the human falling forward. It's actually quite hard to describe toilet paper audibly.
It's like that on the patent, but I will say I have only seen one reason ever to have your toilet paper the other way, which I would consider the wrong way around, and that's if you have a cat that you can't control that likes to roll the toilet paper down. They can't do it as well if you flip it the other way. But I'm like, that's really your problem with like training your cat, man. That's not a toilet paper problem to me.
I don't know. It might be, because can you really control a cat? Like when you said that, I'm like, wait a minute, though. I don't think anyone controls. It's like going to somebody's house and being like, "Where's your cat?" Like, I don't know where my fucking cat. Nobody who owns a cat knows where their cat is. It's not.
Maybe if you're stuck, maybe if you're stuck, if you have maybe you have a toilet paper cat. Like there's probably cats that specifically it's a thing that they do, or they do it once and they discover it's fun. Anyways, this episode is definitely not about cats. So, but it is about a game that is the cat's meow. Nice.
That'll do. Yeah. Okay. That'll do us. And please no more though. Let's keep it there. Nice and Okay. Should we finish telling them? We're so bad at like the structural side of this. So there's a murder, and these two agents come to town, Ray and Reyes. And a note I'll add real quick is that Ray is the female, so it's a little confusing because her name's Ray. Reyes is the male, and he's of like a vague Spanish, I think, persuasion, and he has an accent. And I thought that was such a nice touch. Like, I'm not sure
I really liked his voice. And you know what? I was funny. I went online just looking into who was doing his voice and to see what people had said. And I was surprised at how many people were like, I didn't like his voice. I'm like, what was he supposed to sound like? Like he sounds exactly like his character looks. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. And I mean, I've never really put a lot of thought into, and maybe I should put more into it. If games are racially diverse or whatnot, but I thought they did a beautiful job in Thimbleweed Park.
Right. Okay. So that's exactly. Thank you. You helped extract my own, I think, little thing I'd like to say on this, which is like they abided by the rules of showing and not telling. And I think that a lot of games and movies nowadays, especially when it comes to like diversity, they're very into like telling you, like, here's why it's diverse. And it's like, great, thanks for now I know. Now, you know, whereas in this, it's just like, hey, just casually has an accent as people do. And it's just, yeah, it's like show, not tell. It's like a very realistic and classy way to include diversity, I thought. So that was pretty nice. Okay, so right, we got a dead guy, we got 2 agents. You start off with the ability to control both of them, to switch back and forth between 2. The guy who gets killed, he's not super important. I saw online somewhere that he was supposed to possibly be Dr. Fred's brother, but I'm not sure about that. But he's like a German business guy. He gets killed. You take the 2 agents, and from there you just get to start exploring the town, which is a huge world.
And then it's huge, and right away you get the finding random items on the side of the street and picking them up and putting them in your inventory and meeting random characters like these. There's these pigeon brothers.
Yeah.
Would you? Yeah, I guess pigeon brothers, but it's not really definitely sure if they're actually brothers or sisters or both. There's kind of a little joke going, isn't there, or something?
I don't know. I mean, I thought they were definitely girls, but they are called brothers in your defense. So
that's what it was. Yeah, I think that's what the play on it was. And they're out there and they're like, the signals are strong. The signals are strong. And it's kind of a neat little theme that runs throughout the games is the idea of signals and how they're coming in and how they're going out. And at the beginning of the game, you think these birds are just kind of nutters. But then towards the end of the game, you're kind of like, I think there might be something to these cuckoos.
No, pigeons. That's such a great way to put it. Well, let me downgrade that. That's such a good way to put that. No, but you're so right, because without spoiling it, we'll get there. But without actually, like, like dead ass spoiling it, it kind of works. Like when you get to the ending, you're able to look back and see all these little things that work towards this kind of symphony that builds up to the ending, and you're just like, man, even the signals thing does kind of fit with the ending, though. They weren't fucking around with those signals.
No. And then, okay, like you go to the government house, like most of the stores are closed. This town is essentially it's really crappy right now. A lot of the stuff is closed, much like if you played Quest for Glory, when you go into any of the little towns that have been sealed off by monsters and you're like, oh, nobody comes here anymore. It's kind of like that. And then you go to the sheriff's office and there's all these little machines, and like all of these machines help you to solve. You need to give each one of them certain pieces of information, and it's kind of cool, right? This whole town is essentially run on these machines, right?
Right. So they take the trope of like we've seen. I think we've all seen this a lot in pop culture, where there's like a town that's centric to like the one thriving business in the town, right? Like we're a porridge town, because the old McConnells there made porridge here, and we all work at the porridge factory. That's not in this game. I don't know. I don't know where that actually came from, to be fair, but the idea of that trope of like, it's like a town that's centric to one business, and in Thimbleweed Park, it's the pillow factory. And the pillow factory had a massive fire, as you come to find out pretty early on. And the fire ruined the factory, and the whole town's just falling apart. Like businesses aren't sustaining. It seems like a lot of people left. There's only 81 people in the town until the guy gets killed, and then there's 80. But yeah, anyway, okay, so you start to explore in town. Oh, what do you think about the dust? That's a fun little, it's not really a mini game. It's just like a scratching and OCD itch, where there's these little single pixels all throughout the game that are dust specks, and you get to collect them for no reason.
Oh, it was fun. I didn't get them all. I liked the concept. I also liked how the dust came to a conclusion at the end of the game that was extremely satisfying. I mean, everything about that is great. I liked collecting it. I liked the idea of it, and I liked the resolve on it.
Perfect. So you get these little mini games, switchable characters. You get the town to explore. It's not completely opened up yet. And you've got, I guess I'll just pause here to say it's probably almost easily my favorite soundtrack in adventure games, and my favorite art. I don't think there's a more beautiful game that has ever been made, and that's obviously I'm very biased towards pixel art, but that being said, it's the most gorgeous game. I could just stare at this game and all of its screens, and it's just gorgeous. Credits
and some of the songs get stuck in your head too. They stick so good too.
Yeah, how would you describe the music? It's like Private Eye music. Like,
Yeah, kind of like Miami Vice or something. Maybe.
I don't know Miami Vice.
Let's see. Kind of like the cool funk Blues Brothers, kind of like, yeah, getting more into that side of things. Some of it is like 80s retro, like the Cool Sneakers song, the one that gets played all the time by the teenager. I'm getting ahead of myself now, but that one's kind of got that little bit of like funky, almost like you'd hear it at the beginning of a rap song or like an 80s hook a bit.
Oh, okay, yeah. You're talking about, what's the name? That's the song that you really like, isn't it?
Yeah, the one that kept playing over and over again, and they were using it to torture the guy in the jail. It was great. Yeah.
I can't think of the name of it. No
I
quarter.
think it's Cool Sneakers, No Sneakers,
No
something like
quarter.
that. No Quarter. That's the one. No Quarter. So
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
it's an arcade. It would be like something you'd hear in an arcade game or something. That kind of a sound.
Right. But then otherwise, because that is like a one-off. Otherwise, the music's very, it's very Twin Peaks. Actually, I think it's almost
Hmm.
taken like for Twin Peaks in the sense of like this kind of jazzy. Um, I say jazzy loosely, but just Twin Peaks, Private Eye, like kind of like sexy jazz.
Hmm. Yeah, smooth jazz, but with a bit of sexy added and a little bit of like an element of like an ambiance of detective noir kind of. I don't know, that kind
Yeah,
of a
yeah,
feel.
yeah, yeah. There's like a noir. That's a good word for it too. Like the kind
Hmm.
of surf guitar with meets like horns and okay. Anyway, whatever. Like we're audibly explaining music you could just listen to instead. That would be just I'd be a
Google
lot
it.
more advisable at this point. But I'll just quickly say on the artwork, it was done by Mark Ferrari and by Octavio Navarro. Octavia has a mini series of games that are so much fun and flipping phenomenal. And I rarely play games because I'm like mid development. But these are like these really short, like little excuses for me to quickly play something like new, and they're called Midnight Scenes. And I just want to like quickly really highly recommend them. They're spooky, kind of horror. I guess you could say. I think that's the genre they're labeled under. But they're a lot of fun. They're very creepy. The artwork is just brilliant. Um, and back to Thimbleweed Park, the artwork in this is just insane. Like it definitely
It's
had a huge
wow.
inspiration for me to make a game. Like I remember
So
getting done
wow.
playing Thimbleweed Park the first time when it first came out,
Hmm.
and being like, if I finally make this game that I want to make, that's definitely going to be. This is the direction. It was the first time I ever saw like lighting effects on traditional pixel art, and just like
Hmm.
the use of like vacuum tubes is all throughout the city. So for everyone listening, like the Pillow Factory and a lot of the technology in the town is based on vacuum tubes, which I
Hmm.
just think is so charming and such a neat little like personalization and quirky odd thing characteristic to give like your town, to give it personality, to where like the mailboxes and the fire hydrants and all kinds of even nonsensical things are powered by vacuum
Hmm.
tubes, and all the vacuum tubes have just a satisfying seafoam green kind of glow to them. um, and the glow is done with like with lighting effects, let's say, on top of the regular pixel art, which I had never seen stuff like that before. I think Ben Chandler had probably done it. I'd probably seen it first from Ben Chandler's works, but Ben is like, his is quite blended. Like it's almost hard to tell what was let's say a Photoshop lighting effect and what was done by hand. If not all of it by hand was Ben, I'm not really sure. I don't think so, because it can get really tedious making a gradient, like a transparent gradient with pixels. But that being said, the point is that Thimbleweed isn't trying to blend it or I don't want to say hide it, because that's not what Ben's doing either. But they're for lack of better words, they're not trying to hide it. They're very much just like, here's a chunky pixelated vacuum tube, and then something 2 or 3 times the resolution in a lighting effect, and it looks amazing. Like the upstairs inside of the mansion, like all the doors have the vacuum tubes above it and the way they glow, and it's just the most gorgeous game. Like I could just look at the screenshots forever.
Hmm. Yeah, oh, I love it. And the 3D-ness, like when you're walking through the bushes, even at the very, very beginning of the game, and it's in layers. It's like, imagine in some of the Larry games, like for example, if you're looking at Larry 3, you've kind of got it all set up in layers. It's like that, but like obviously it's in the future now, and it looks amazing. It looks so 3D that you could just go in and pluck your character out of the bushes and put him in your pocket. Just it looks so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like you got this good parallax thing going on. So anyway, yeah, just uh, I don't know. What am I trying to say? Mark Ferrari is an awesome artist. Everybody knows that. So there's that. And then Octavi. Yeah, I guess the whole takeaway from this is
Yeah.
you know what it looks like. You saw it yourselves. Maybe go buy Octavi's Midnight Scene game. It's turned into a weird
Yeah,
plug for him.
support Octavia. I think him. Yes, please do that. And also, okay, so in the beginning of the game, you meet a few of your characters pretty much right in the beginning. You've got Ransom the Clown comes up, and he's one of those like characters that he's a comedian, but his comedy as a clown is to insult people, and it's kind of neat because you get sent into a little flashback. And it introduces you to the character and where he's at and his attitude. And then you get to walk him through his first show. So it's a little bit interactive. You're picking on people in the audience and then you're making fun of them with a real like hit home hard. And that sets off Ransom's storyline for the game because he got cursed, right? It didn't go very well.
I really like the way they introduce characters going forward, like from here. So you start out as the two agents, and then like you go to the diner as the agents, and you start asking around. Okay, well, first of all, at the diner is Sandy and Dave, and Sandy and Dave are awesome. And I kind of think that they were a couple, but I'm not totally sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought like, okay, shut up, Dave. She's always like, shut up, Dave, shut up, Dave. And I'm like, at first I was like brother and sister automatically, but now I'm like, I think they could have been. They had the dynamic of two people that would bicker because they knew each other comfortably. Like nobody was taking offense. It's just kind of happy go lucky, and obviously not the talker in the relationship. But I think marriage makes more sense. I think that dynamic is more of a marriage dynamic, a little.
It's also very much a sibling dynamic, though, too, right? Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's
but yeah, the two of them run a diner together. Anyways,
yes,
that's the shtick.
Yes, and Dave's kind of like a Meg, basically. He gets treated like like a shut up Meg sort of character, but it works, man. They do some very, very funny jokes with him. So anyway, as one of the two agents, you ask Sandy, like, who do you think could have done the murder? And she's all, it's gonna be somebody, it's that no good clown, Ransom the clown. And then it does like this Wayne's World style flashback, like the full with the wavy screen. I'm doing the hand thing now, little octopus kind of hand, and and it cuts over to Ransom. He's got like a little cutscene, and then you get control of him. Just a quick like side note: we should talk about the checklist later when we get out of the story centric part of the episode, because one of the mechanics is that each character has a checklist. For there's pros and cons to it, but for now you look at the checklist, you see the few things that you have to do. Strummer, please, and you do them, and then it kind of effortlessly hands you back to whichever agent you were, and he's not quite unlocked yet. Like you kind of more just get a taste of him. You don't get to just switch back to him because you played him. I just wanted to add that in too. So because I think it says a lot and works towards the pacing of the game.
Yeah, they really open the game up gradually. Like, for example, there's parts of the game you can't get to because, shocker, water in the way, like, because there's like a fire hydrant and you have to solve how to close it off and get you through. And it's like the funny, ha, 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 it's an adventure game. You can't get through the water as if, like, I just run through the water. But anyways, what it does is it closes you off because you don't want to go too far and see too much. Because when they finally open up the full world and the full map, it's actually, there's a lot of places and a lot of places to go.
Okay, I don't want to get us stuck here, but now that you said it that specific way, see, I didn't see them playing that as a joke, and I thought it was kind of weak. I was like, this game is meticulously designed. It is a phenomenal game where I think most things were taken into consideration. But I was like, and I was studying it just like as a little wannabe developer myself, where I'm like, this is one of my favorite games of all time, and it happens to be done by one of the greats of all time. So I should probably pay attention to what I think it works. And I'm looking at it from a very not me being a skeptic, but from Ron Gilbert being skeptical. I'm like, Ron's standard is why adventure games suck high. Like has the highest standards of adventure games. And I'm like, from that perspective, I'm like, what does he allow that other developers wouldn't, or what does he not allow is a better way to frame this than that other developers do. And when I got to the water, I was like, I guess is certain things are just, I guess, adventure gamery. Because I don't know. I think I should just reframe this as a question to you. Like, do you think they were playing that as an angle, or do you think that's just how they block progress at that moment? Like, was it fourth wall-y?
At first I thought they were using it to block progress, but when you and I were having an earlier conversation about the game,
Unrecorded,
and you
of
were
course.
telling me that unrecorded because we didn't record this whole episode and we decided we didn't like it, and we're not recording it all over again just before releasing it because that would be insane.
I know. Imagine if it was Monday night at 9:30 and this gets released tomorrow morning. Ridiculous.
Who would do that? But no, when you said that to me, how ridiculous it was, it got me to thinking. And I went back and I played some more of the game in the last week since we potentially didn't record this episode already. And I realized that I think it was a joke. I totally do. It made me think of like when you're in an RPG, and I know you don't play those, but imagine that there's like a bush or a hedge that's like, imagine there's a bush or a hedge and it's like a foot tall and it's in front of you and you're shuffle stepping your feet across it and it's like, I can't go this way.
Right.
And it's like, and it's funny. Like they make fun of that. And so there's a part of me that thinks he was totally like, they're going to be like, how do we block the street? And they're sitting around and he's like, well, what are all these things? Oh, it could be a truck. It could be this. It could be that. And then they're like, let's make it something stupid. Let's totally make it fit in the game genre. Let's make it water.
Yeah. See, okay. Because when you said that like 5 minutes ago, by now it stopped me in my tracks because I'm like, oh no, I think I got caught not getting a joke. I hate that. It makes me feel old and in the way. But I think that's what happened there. I think I didn't get that because they play it so straight face. Like because in my defense audience, a lot of the fourth wall breaking, the in jokes as they call it, is super on the nose. The body's becoming pixelated on the nose. Like it's very just like this. That's what makes it funny is when you just, are obvious and blatant about it. And this one, they play it really straight, man. Like it's just like the Pigeon Brothers are trying to fix it. And it's like a, please get out of this situation. This is a serious matter. And I'm just like, man, I can't believe I'm being blocked by water right now. But now that I'm like saying it out loud, and then like you imagine asking Ron Gilbert, like, hey, was that a joke or not? I'd be like, dude, of fucking course it was. It's water. Why wouldn't? But at the same time, I mean, like a fire hydrant's amount of water, like that pressure is potentially dangerous. So maybe you couldn't very obviously walk through it, even though it's water.
If it was happening in your town, a fireman or an emergency response worker would put cones up and not allow you to go that way. So, like, rightfully, that is correct.
But I think it's just kind of like a lot of this game. It's just kind of brilliant because it's like it kind of seems to work on two levels where it's like it is just water, but you actually really wouldn't pass through broken fire hydrant water. Like that's pretty like skin melting pressure coming out of that thing. And yeah, like you said, if the city was, so anyway, that's why the game is smart. Like there's a pretty obvious edit there, people. I don't know what I was saying when my internet broke up a little bit because Starlink is a little sensitive to, small amounts of drizzle. My apologies.
But yeah, so anyways, very good. All of that. Next, and then you think, oh, well, is this it? Like you're still in the first chapter here, kids. Well, yet another character, and I was kind of shocked. I was like, I just came out of a flashback. Well, they pop you into another flashback, right?
Yeah, I can't remember how you get into Dolores specific. It doesn't really matter, but the next one is Dolores. And she emerges as like kind of the hero, not the hero, but the I guess the main protagonist of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it turns out that it's not technically the detectives. The detectives are almost side characters in a game that they essentially star in.
Yeah, I never thought about that either. You're right, because they fall to the background and then they end up leaving a bit early. They come back, but they leave later in the game for like a part. And the game is broken up into parts, by the way, like as opposed to Days and Gabriel Knight or cases. It's part 1, part 2, etc. But yeah, so anyway, they pass you off to Dolores, and I think that Dolores, I think she's Ron Gilbert. I think she's more or less a representation of him and his background and personality.
Gosh, I didn't see that because her father Franklin is like, he's like pillow factory, and she, and animatronic, this and that. And then she's like, and then like at the beginning of the game, she wants more than anything just to tell her father that what she really wants to do is work with computers and coding. And every time you click on the option to tell him that, she just says, oh, I'm really excited to get to work at the factory with you. And it's like, I can really feel the inner wrestle. And I think you're right. I think this is a very inner kind of a deep moment.
Yeah, well, it's funny too because it's played like rock and roll. Like her wanting to code is almost like it's almost a trope in movies. It's been done where the kid
Mhm.
just wants to rock, man. Like I just want to play. These
Mhm.
square parents don't get it, man. Like and it's really, almost essentially the opposite of rock and roll as far as like coding and being an adventure game designer, I guess, as they call it, right
Mhm.
on the nose for. But yeah, it's that's her dream, and I know that she's like a big fan of Basic, which Ron is the same way, and I think Ron wrote a Basic program that is used in the game. I could be wrong about that, but at one point Dolores has to get I don't really honestly I don't know what it is. It's not I don't think it's Basic the compiler, but it's maybe it is. I'm not sure. The point is
Mhm.
that there's a lot of parallels to her and to Ron Gilbert. And to
Mhm.
what you were saying with like the human aspect, yeah, there's a lot of her like playing off of her uncle Chuck is like the her and her dad I think own it together. It doesn't matter, but Chuck's like the big
Mhm.
boisterous kind of bullies her dad Franklin, and Chuck's like pressuring her to take over the factory. And he even says like it's you're turning when she does defect officially, which this is a momentary skipping ahead, but when she does defect like in the next chapter or so, he on again hitting the nail on or breaking the fourth wall or in joking the shit out of it. He's like, you're walking away from $10 million, which in the year
Mhm.
2017 would be 18 million or whatever. He does the math for you, which is kind of funny too. But anyway, yeah. So then you're
Yeah, so
Dolores.
it's right
What'd you
where it
think of her?
comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, that was the kind of character that was designed for me to absolutely fall in love with her and her personality. She's so like straightforward and rigid and yet like feeling and emotional, and her brain works so analytically. I just man, they put so much depth into that character, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think we had actually talked about in private, like not long ago, that we suspected Ron Gilbert was interested in people, maybe perhaps more than
Hmm.
things, right? So, like he seems like
Hmm.
he has a deep interest in people and how they think and psychology, let's say, and he seems like he fits perfectly into adventure games because he's obsessed with. Maybe that's a bit much to put on him. He's very interested in
Well,
how
the
people think.
nuances of people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the nuances of
nuances.
thinking and the little in between interactions that make it real. Like nothing in the game reads formulaic. It doesn't read like this is how adventure game characters are supposed to talk. So this is how they're going to talk in my game. It's just like it's a living, breathing community of people that make up this game, and each one of them has its own personality. It's not like it sounds like Ron Gilbert made these characters in this game. It's like no, these are the characters fleshed out in the game. They're so freaking real.
Right, and that covers the personality side, and then on the developmental side, it's prevalent too. Because I think our conversation had started from me coming to you and just being like, man, I think there's a lot of compassion required to design an adventure game because you have to, and compassion might not be the right word, but it doesn't matter. The idea is like you have to constantly wear
Empathy.
other people. Yeah, you have to constantly put yourself in other
Hmm.
people's shoes, and obviously it
Hmm.
becomes infinitely tricky because you don't even know to whom shoes you have to wear. You have to wear many different pairs, and imagine how many different personality traits would react to a situation to try and design for it. And I think that Ron is phenomenal at that. And I mean that's not a breakthrough or a unique comment for me to make, but what would be to say when I watched Ron talk about the speed running in One Short Eye's very recent video with him, which everyone should
Hmm.
check out. It's been linked in our past few episodes, and it will be in this one. Perhaps I don't know. I might have a newer video of his to link, but it doesn't matter. The point is to go check out One Short Eye's video with Ron because that's when it really struck me. He was talking about how he imagined people approaching the certain puzzle in Monkey Island 2. And I was just like, he's quite interested in how we all think and act. And I think that's in part what makes him a great adventure game designer. And just to tie it all, I guess, back into Dolores is that, yeah, there's that bit of like empathy and compassion that you get from her that's quite sincere. It's not like in a,
Hmm. Earnest almost. Yeah.
right. Yeah. It's like she's not trying to
Hmm.
be, for lack of a better terms, like she's not trying to come across as woke and like just super, like,
Mm-mm.
just I'm so down to earth and I just love everybody. Like she's not showing it off. There's just this very
Mm-mm.
authentic warmth and kindness about this fictional character that's just like
Yeah.
she seems
Like a
quite huggable.
yearning too. She does. I want to hug her. She's yearning for the coding and the passion and the programming. She's yearning for her uncle to be a better man and to be more like who he was, even if he wasn't amazing, if he could be again. She's yearning for her father to accept her for who she is. She's yearning to get into the courses that she wants to get into, and she's yearning to have a career in the future and maybe even be able to benefit her own family with this education at some point in the future. And I can feel the pull of all of these different emotions that she's having.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's really well put. Really well put. Hopefully, I'll be able to tie back in later when we get to the ending, because there's a few poignant moments with her and her father. But for now, so that's the introduction of Dolores, right? And I will say too that you get to go back to the mansion, which they call the mansion. I think is that like if anybody should get that joke, it would be me, who co-hosts a podcast about old adventure games.
Oh my god! I just got it just now. Oh my god! Why?
But that's Maniac Mansion instead of is that why they say Mansion instead of Maniac Mansion?
Must be, yeah. Because you saw like there was that one there's an in joke where you later on in the game with Nurse Edna.
Right, yes. So it's got to be right. Yeah. So they call it the Mansion, and it's from the outside, it's. I mean, there's quite a resolution difference between Maniac Mansion and this. So Dolores is in the mansion, right? The mansion is in the mansion from the mansion thing. It's Maniac Mansion. And
mansion.
There's all these cool, back to the vacuum tubes and just like the personality of this town. There's all these like just gadgets that have come to life. I at least imagine in part because of the weird, I don't know, the implementations of vacuum tubes. Like what I'm really trying to get at is like the printer, which is just this adorably awesome device where, yes, it's vacuum tube power, but that has nothing else to do with it. But like it has these mechanical robot arms. So when you want to print something, the mechanical arms just type on a typewriter for you. It's like it is
so steampunk. Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah. It's such a good idea, like such a great way to think of a printer, because it's really just a typewriter, but the mechanical arms are the part that is automated, I guess. And it's just brilliant. I just love it. Okay. We're back from a big old edit. We just wandered into nonsense land. Everything was moist and inappropriate, and we're back and we're ready to be mature about the end of this episode, which we're not even, I think, close to, but we maybe should consider being soon. So we're all done with Dolores. She's been a treat. We're gonna head back out of the mansion. She got a job at Mucus Phlegm, which is LucasArts, and that's great. And she's gonna work that all out. And then we get kicked back outside, and there's only one more character to unlock at this point, and that's Franklin, Dolores' dead dad, who's a ghost. Diddle-loo, diddle-loo, diddle-loo.
And he's a nice but very meek. He's the kind of guy who makes you think he works in an office, and is like, he's even meeker almost as a ghost than he was in person. And he's kind of like holding the paper and saying, "Is this what you wanted, Mr. Slater?" or whatever. Like he's very, very, very meek, and that's a big part of his story, because as we'll talk about in a minute about the notebook, he needs to kind of figure out how to stand up for himself a little bit and resolve his resolves, because, okay, I'm going to bring it in now though. Okay. That is the dynamic. Like each of these characters, they have this little notebook.
Yeah.
I've introduced him. He's a ghost, right? That's fine. So they have a notebook, and the notebook has he's exactly. That's the word. That's the one I was looking for. And the notebook is like, it checks off things as you do them. So it tells you what to do next, and then you check them off after you do it. So in a way, it's kind of like, it's a guide. It's kind of like, it tells you what to do. And it's not even all that the game does to do that. It also provides you with a hint line that you can phone from any one of the in-game phones, and it'll also kind of guide you UHS F hints or UHS hint style. I mean, sort of one step to the other, what to do next. So it really does try really hard not to leave you to be lost, which on the one hand is great because you always know what to do next and you don't really need any walkthroughs. But on the other hand is kind of like, for somebody like me, I almost prefer it not to be there as much, because it's too easy to just look at it and be like, okay, now it's like a list of chores, things I have to do, instead of a list of things to discover.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting to the point where I think we've both agreed to probably do an episode soon on this kind of on this entire topic, because what's
Mhm.
the reason they do it is quite clear. There's a lot of characters and there's a lot to do, and I think it has mostly to do with the character swapping. So it's like every time you change characters, they
Mm.
have an entirely different set of things they need to accomplish. Rarely is a task spread throughout. Hey, you could do this one with any of them. Like that's in the beginning of the game, especially when it's just the two agents, where it's like you can pretty much do anything as either of the two agents, doesn't matter. But then it gets to a point
Oh,
where where
Angela. Her name's Angela Ray. Antonio Reyes.
oh,
That's
interesting.
why her last name is boyish. Her last name is Ray. I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm just realizing this now. It's Angela and Antonio. But you
Right.
never once hear those during the game.
Right, I mean,
So,
possibly
okay.
literally once, but yeah, right.
Mhm.
And an agent, you always go by the last name, makes sense. Okay, but yeah, anyway, so
Mhm.
the checklist thing makes sense because there's so many different characters, and there comes to a point where Franklin, Dolores, Ransom, etc., have their own objectives and things they need to accomplish to forward the
Mhm.
plot. Um, so I could see it becoming almost like a baffling kind of document you'd have to compile on your own to try and keep track of this stuff. So in that sense, I don't see any other way they could have done it. Is what I'm trying to say. But to your
Mhm.
point, and to the point of perhaps a further episode where we can explore this a little further, um, is Anna had texted me at some point during her playing saying that she found it to be maybe a little more puzzly. I think is what you had
Mhm.
said, and I was like, damn, I agree with her, and I don't know why, and I kind of don't. I don't like that I agree with her. Like it would kind of struck a nerve for some reason. To the part of me that's childishly defensive of how much I love this game, I didn't want to hear that because I knew I agreed with it. Why does it feel more puzzly? Because as I said to you in response was like, in between dialogue, that's what an adventure game is. There's a puzzle to solve. You're either in a dialogue or you're solving a puzzle. But really, we of course made it, and we promised not to make this like a versus in a Sierra sort of episode. But we're like, well, what is the difference? Why would we suggest that it doesn't feel as puzzly in the middle of like a Sierra one? And I think our conclusion, at least from our first attempt at not recording this, was that there's a lot of times in Sierra games where you don't know what to do.
Mhm.
And that maybe
True.
maybe there's a positive to that. There's obviously a huge negative
Mhm.
to it. We've all been stuck in the desert as King Graham. But
Mhm.
maybe there's a positive to not always knowing exactly what to do, because there is this, as Anna said previously, there is this kind of like feeling that you have this chore list or these errands to run, and there's like it's missing a little
Mhm.
bit of mystery, a little bit of like,
Mhm.
I don't know. It's like a 15-year-old marriage. Like where's the sexy like mystery behind what I'm supposed to do next? It's very just like, if you do
Mhm.
this and that, you'll get laid on Wednesday, and
Mhm.
we all like getting laid on Wednesday, but it's the delivery of the information that we're talking about.
Mhm.
So anyway, this is mostly for us to explore in probably its own episode just regarding these kind of things. But it is a good point, and yeah, I don't know. What would you say to my argument that there's probably no other way to have done it because of how many characters there are? Like, do you think it was
Yeah.
avoidable?
I think that it could have been another option. You could either turn on and off.
Quite simply.
Yes.
That's pretty good, right? That's interesting, because there is and for everyone listening too, there is a casual mode to this game where you can play it in a lot less time. But
Mhm.
in both modes that is on, that would almost, because they call the other mode, I think, I don't know if it's expert mode or what they call it in a slightly joking
Mhm.
tone, but they're like for hardcore adventure gamers. Um,
Yeah.
which I will say is adorable from a LucasArts point of view. This game literally tells you in the first 20 minutes that you're not going to die and that you'll feel safe,
Yeah.
and then they're like, but don't worry, it's designed so brilliantly that you'll feel like there's stakes, and boy
It
do
even says you
you.
don't have to save. Like, don't bother
Yeah,
saving. You're totally
yeah.
fine. Like, we're going to give you that ability.
Man, that actually quite bothered me when I heard it this second playthrough. I didn't mind it the first time, but the second playthrough, it kind of annoyed me. I'm like, okay, Jesus, like that is really on the nose, and I don't really appreciate being reminded of how safe I am and this and that. But I will say the prophecy comes true, because I think what this game does the best is presents the feeling of stakes. Like there's things
Mhm.
that the choices that you have somewhat matter, I don't. Well, I guess what I'm saying or trying to argue is that they do a really good job, and it's almost a masterclass as far as like development study on how to make the players think that what they're doing matters. Because there was a few times in this where, okay, so I played this game with my son's drummer, which I will just add. Actually, it's a great time for him to be making noise in the background because I cannot edit it and say that it's him saying hi. He sounds like a plastic bag opening. Um, he's 8 years old, and I'm just saying this in case anybody who worked on the game is listening to this podcast. That my 8-year-old son played this game with me. We played it 2 hours a night for 4 or 5 nights or whatever. Look, don't do the math. I don't know. Because I did do casual mode this time, by the way. I'm hardcore. I did the original mode when the Kickstarter first released, and there was no walkthroughs online. I did it myself in 26 hours, which is quite a long time, according to how long to beat. I'm definitely still not good at playing adventure games. But point is, I played it with my son in casual mode, and he's 8 years old. He's YouTube generation. Everything's super fast. You know, the way those kids are. Boy, does that sound horrible aging wise. You know how to kill a son these days, huh? But my 8-year-old son loved this game very much. Like there was no struggle for me to like get him involved. He was excited each night to play it again. And so, yeah, they did something really, really right. I mean, obviously my kids particularly has been like kind of indoctrinated towards liking adventure games. So there's a little handicap there, but still point is that he really liked it. And there was a point that preceded my kid playing it with me, which I forgot, but I think we all enjoyed the road to me forgetting. So. Okay, let's go back to the story. Oh no, you know what? I was talking about stakes. So can you think of times where the game made you feel like, I don't know, there were
Quite
stakes?
a few, because, well, it made you feel like you had some, almost like, oh my gosh, if I pick the wrong answer, am I going to be screwed? Because there's a few times where like you pick an answer and then the conversation carries forward. You can't go back and pick another answer, and they're all kind of different. Like, even what's your opinion? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? And you're like, it's a bad thing. They're like, and it's like, it really makes me feel like I need to pay attention to what I'm writing. And I don't even know how much of a difference any of it actually makes by the end of the game, to be honest, but it sure gosh darn makes you feel like it would. It also makes you feel like you want to play again to see what you're missing, because there was quite a few times too, like if you look away and it just keeps regressing, right? And you've missed whatever it was the response was, and now the option to click it again is gone.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And it happens with the dialogue. It happens with Agent Reyes. He just disappears for a small chunk of the game. And something we haven't actually mentioned to listeners too is that so from the beginning of the game onwards, this maybe, as we mentioned, is broken into parts. And maybe just with one per part ish, but about one time per part, it breaks into a static screen, like static TV static. And it's just if you're watching the game from a, behind a fourth wall, I guess. And it just adds this kind of intrigue and this ominous kind of creepy vibe. Really, it's like this voyeuristic vibe of like somebody's watching me. Like it made me realize that they've done a great job of making me feel like I'm the characters I'm playing, because I feel watched when they do that. As if I was one of the characters, just being like, there's a very minor touch of violation behind it, where it's just like, hey, easy, who's watching us here? Take it easy. It's something creepy about it. But that being said, one of the scenes in latter parts is like the static screen, and you see something happen to the Agent Reyes, where he gets like he's knocked out on a table in the coroner's office, and then all of a sudden you look at your menu, like as soon as that plays, like the first thing I did was try to change to Reyes, and he wasn't there anymore. And I'm like, oh shit, so that was real. Like something happened to my boy. I can't change to him anymore. He's not even an option. Is he dead? And then just like a little bit later, he just comes back and you can use him. And
because you can't, like, I was even like, what do I do? Where did he go? Because he had my inventory items, and it's like, I almost wonder if it was like, I don't know, Miles. I don't even know. Like, was it like a glitch? Like, not like a glitch, a purposeful one for us to be like, think back on it or something, like, we better reset that, or I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to explain without throwing in too many spoilers right at this point. But I have a couple theories I can discuss later.
Right. No, but there is like a mindfuck vibe behind it. Exactly. And I'll
Yes,
just say too,
very
what's
much
kind
so.
of dancing on that level without getting into spoilers would be to what we said earlier about the Pigeon Brothers and the signals. It's very much like that,
Mhm.
where it's like it plays to the strength of the ending as opposed to being just like like I didn't find things like that to be gimmicky, because I think they play towards the overall plot device, which again is the spoiler. So yeah, point is that there's a good feeling of stakes in this game. There's one or two times where something genuinely unexpected happens. One of them got a jump scare out of my son, which is getting knocked out. I won't say where, I guess. There's no need to spoil that specifically for somebody who wants to play it. But yeah, there's just a few moments of genuine, unexpected things.
So the game progresses, and you've got all your characters introduced, and now the cool thing is, and it took me a while to figure it out, actually. Okay, so you've got you and you've got your other characters. There's what, like 5 of you, and you get a copy of the map, and you need the map to traverse the world because it's a really big world and you need it as a shortcut. And all of a sudden, so you've got the puzzle and you've got like 5 copies of the thing. And I'm like, why the hell do I need 5 copies of the map? And in my head, I'm like, it must be a puzzle. I must have to combine them or make some bigger map. Like, are they all
Right.
pieces? No. It turns out you need to gather your crew together and or take that one and hand out the map to your friends. No, now you're literally having to reframe the concept of how to play the game, in that you need to use all of them together in different ways to now work together to solve the puzzle of the game together. And I thought that was just genius.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's something that's really, really well done. It culminates at the end too. So here, I'll tell you what. Let's walk everybody through the plot really quick from where we're at, so we could get to the spoiler part, because we spent the last 10 minutes restraining from saying spoilers. We've obviously arrived there, basically. So let's just
Yes.
yeah. Okay. So what happens from here is that the agents solve the murder, which it's not necessarily solved. It's purposefully unsatisfying, let's say, the result.
Yes.
But the puzzle you put together, and you enter the information into these otronic machines, and
Mm-hmm.
the person you kind of assumed they'd pin it on gets it pinned on them, and that's
Yeah.
when
And
the arrest is
they
made.
get captured into jail. Yeah.
Yeah, captured and locked up. And this is when somewhere around here is when all the characters are interchangeable. You don't just control Dolores or any of them because you're in their flashback. You can change whenever you want and start allowing them to work together. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that moves us on to the factory, because what's interesting about this game is that there's 8 parts, but the majority of the game feels like it takes place in the first 3 parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so.
Right, and because once you move on to the factory, it starts to at least feel like it's wrapping up. I don't know. I guess that doesn't really matter. But the point is, for continuity, is we're now at the point where a murder or an arrest for the murder has happened, and the agents leave town. They're like, "Word, we did what we had to do." Now, granted, the agents have been saying like all this. I know they've been saying some puzzling things, like dropping these little like purposeful hints where they'll be like, I got to get this case solved so I can get back to the whatever,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was always this kind of like suspicious undertone going on. Like, what is the motive here? Like, clearly the both of them have different motives. And if you read the notebook, they each have notes on each other, and they're not exactly positive. Like, oh my God, I got to deal with this guy, or oh my God, can't believe I got to work with this lady. So they were clearly not like best of friends either.
They were
They had a
being
bit of
interfered
like a
with.
contrast. Yeah, definitely.
Right. It was like each other was in the other one's way. In other words, there's ulterior motives, and we don't know them. We just know that there's something else going on. Both of the agents have something unresolved that they're trying to get to, and they have to get through this case first. So the agents fuck off so they can finally go do that. And you can tell I've been watching a lot of Trolls videos this week. So I just said that. And off they fuck. That's trademark Space Quest historian right there. I rewatched all his King's Quest videos this week. So anyway,
it's a really good phrase. It's
I know,
hard
it's so
not
good.
to emulate. Hard not to emulate the awesomeness. So
yeah, I guess we're just trying to get more towards the end of the story so we can do spoilers, and we're at that now. So we get to the factory, and a better point I think for everybody listening that hasn't played it to understand is that the murder has been solved and the game keeps going. So this is when the game is ready to start unveiling what it's really about. Because it's like, if you're not done the game when the murder's solved, and this whole thing wasn't about a murder, was it? And the game's like, no, it wasn't. All that, there's been some weird shit going on. We know, you've seen it. We're doing weird things. We're kind of mind fucking you a little bit here and there. And so now we start to finally figure out what's actually going on.
More than, and I mean, and it's great because it doubles you up on it. You do the factory, you find out what's really going on. And then after you find out what's really going on and you fix it, you find out what's really going on.
Right. It's like a Russian nesting doll of what's going on.
That's right. The Matryoshka game.
So yeah, I mean, I guess, should we just move into full spoilers, right? This is the part where you should just check out. If you don't want to know
officially.
Yeah, if you don't want to know like the secrets of Monkey's Island, which I'm not spoiling that. I don't know why I would confusingly say that, but you're listening. You guys know me by now. Very confusing, man. Look, if you don't want to know what happens at the end of the show, this is where you should leave. But
and if you have not played it and do intend on playing it, stop listening. You probably won't forget this. This is like, sometimes you're like, that's okay, I've never played it, I might forget this. Nope, you won't forget this. So stop listening. But if you've never played it and never intend to play it, you should listen. It's all super interesting. In fact, I ran around my house telling everybody in my house what the ending was, and my mom made comparisons to books from the 60s, and it was a whole thing. So.
And I would challenge, for those sticking around who have played it, or besides the ones that haven't played it and are just nihilistic and like, fuck you, I'm staying. To which I tap my hat at you, sir, madam, whatever the case is, you're awesome. But to those who have played it, I would say that why should you bother listening? It's because I have a case for why it doesn't suck. And I just want to say real quick that I think that we all get a little wrapped up in, like, not wrapped up, we all fall trap easily to surface biases, where it's like the hive is like, as a general populace, we're not thrilled. And it's so easy to just be like, yeah, I guess I wasn't thrilled. Like, it's so, I know I'm persuasive like that, where it's just like, I don't really have an opinion, but everyone says it sucks, so it sucks. And I think if you really scrutinize this and really give it a chance, you would see that it's quite well written. It's quite well done. And I think it's really easy to toss aside in like you're just, that's wildly inappropriate. I can't say that. Look, doesn't matter. The point is, we have a decent argument for why it's good. Okay, Anna, since you've played it most recently and you've I played it when it first came out, so I'd never really had like the weird bias. To the listeners, very quickly, let me clarify that it's of my observation and I guess opinion, but more observation, that most people, even if it's 60-40, which I think it's more than, but I think most people didn't like the ending, or when I hear about the ending, it's usually in a negative light. It's usually seems less like than more like. So anyway, my point is that I played it immediately, so there was no public opinion. You're in the guild all the time. You've definitely not. You've managed to escape dead spoilers, but you definitely heard negative things about a big twist ending or whatever. So I want to just let you spoil it and let you tell everybody what's up.
For sure. Well, it's a double spoiler because, okay, I'd heard all of these things and I'm like, I knew the game was heavy into fourth wall, and I kept being like warned about this ending, not by Paul, who's like, oh my God, you're going to love the ending, but like other people. And it was wild because, you get into this abandoned pillow factory with your crew and something's going on. And it turns out it's like this AI that's been running the factory, but it's like an evil AI. And then you find out it's actually your uncle, Dolores' uncle, who is partnered up with the evil AI because over the years his resolve would get weaker and weaker, and his want for a pillow factory to rule the world, like Piggy and the Brain style, would get stronger and stronger. So he ended up just merging with the AI through death in some way and running the factory, and one day the world would be next. And it's kind of neat because Dolores, she has to come in and kind of shut it down. So she comes up with this plot. She figures it out. She figures a way to use like the tubes and anyways, pushes them in. It's a whole thing, kills the AI. And all that's left is the spirit of her uncle. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a neat ending, but it's not like what everybody had been talking about. It's not like it's kind of a fourth wall break, a person merging with AI. But anyways, okay, you defeat him. He's all that's left. And then he reveals that like the whole game is a game to like Dolores, and he's like, all of you guys are just characters, and he's kind of like, didn't you realize like there's like 80 people in this town and 300 people in the phone book, and like no school, where's all the children, like none of this makes sense, obviously it's a game. And that's the moment where that kind of AI merges with the reality, merges with the fourth wall breaking, and all of it comes into play together. So I was just like, holy shit, like that is such a cool concept. And honestly, he gets Dolores to realize it in such an honest way. Like she's just sitting there going, yeah, but what about, but what about, and it doesn't even like, it gives her resolve, right? Like, oh, okay, well then we should probably finish up any loose ends, because she's got to like kibosh the whole game, right?
Right.
Because that's the thing, because they're like, well, I guess we're not really real. We don't really have parents, and this is all kind of for naught. So let's get rid of this now. But you've got all these mysteries to solve first.
That was so adventure gamer of you. Anna just used kibosh at me because I learned that at the beginning of our talk, and now like full circle. Right. In adventure game fashion, it gets used in the end. It's quite an arc for that word. It's brilliant. Okay, so I'm glad I'm picking up on the excitement and the shock. You were surprised. That's impressive at this point. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I thought it was really good. I'll just say quickly is that neither of us are very tainted, let's say, by Monkey Island 2 or like, you know, whether or not that was hinting towards that's what it was. And this is round finally. Like I'm outside of all of that, just saying I thought it was really well done. It's done in a way that they knew that that's how it was going to be off the bat. So the whole thing is written towards it, where Chuck's giving her examples of how it is a simulation. And the one that I thought was like poignant, really stuck with me from the first playthrough was when he's like, "Where's your mother, Dolores?" And she just like stops in silence. And so do I as a player. And I'm just like, dude, where is her mother? She doesn't like, you know that she's whether, I don't know. It's like, I suspect my subconscious had already pieced it together and was accepting of it before I was, because as soon as that happened, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a simulation. That's where this is going. Cause you know, you just knew that Dolores was going to be like, yeah, I don't remember having a mom. I don't, you know, like it's the first hole exposed, which is like, well, you know, where's like the rest of your family? Where's the school? Where's the children in town? What, you know, as you said, why is there 3,000 names in the phone book and only 80, which I would have never noticed that. But regardless, they bring in everything that's going on, even the signal back to the pigeons and things like that. Start all tying together. We were just like, wow, like everything is able to make sense now. And it's just quite brilliant. So then you're left with the remaining characters, and now it's time to basically send them off, give them a character arc, and then have Dolores try to shut the system down.
And I just want to take a minute back into this like wild fourth wall territory. I know even your cat Lunchbox is excited, but he actually in the game, it actually says to you, oh, do you want to know what to do next? I bet you do. Well, if so, you better go back and watch the Kickstarter video from this game from like, what was it, 2017?
Right. Yeah.
Go back and watch that thing on the internet and, you know, figure out what to do next, because that's where the clue is. And I'm like, oh, that got me so excited. And I went on there and all the comments are like, this is why we're here too.
Right. And that's like, God, that is like everything this is why we play, you know, this is like why we lace up on Sundays. Listening back to the episodes of the podcast, you picked up on us always praising moments when you have to write things down in real life, whether it's taking notes for Laura Bow or, you know, I recall like having Mark Fillion on and talking about, right. Yeah, exactly. Phone numbers, or Mark Fillion doing Chinatown, and us being just so excited about like the prospect of bringing the real world into problem solving or puzzle solving. And so, yeah. And what better way to do it? It was just, I saw it as just very well written for what they decided to do. And I think that a lot of the criticism is it's almost irrationally spirited, because it's like, there's a difference between doing something gimmick in a gimmick fashion, doing something poorly, or somebody did something that you just don't like. And it's like, hey, if you don't like the meta aspect of it, first of all, what are you doing playing like a Ron Gilbert game? Like, honestly, with all this fourth wall breaking, I mean, this is just like, like a
Mhm.
fourth wall gasm, basically. I'm surprised that's where everybody supposedly drew the line, where they're like, oh, that's too far.
Mhm.
Everything else, like having Guybrush Threepwood in like every modern adventure game, like as an Easter egg is fine, but like this is the line. Like I don't really understand why this was too far, especially considering
Mhm.
everything behind it. But I just would add that like I could see it not being what people would have wanted or that they liked, but I can't see it as being. It's not poorly written and it's not poorly
Mhm.
executed. Like it was really well done. Um, Again, yeah, I guess that's why I get confused is because I could see not liking it for people that don't like fourth wall breaks. That like my brother's one
Mhm.
is very easy to imagine, like an enraged, like, oh my god, that fucking ending. Are you serious? But nobody who hates fourth wall breaks would get through this game.
Mhm.
So I guess that
Yeah.
to me is the paradox behind it. And I'll just say too, taking it all the way to the end is that if you're still listening and you still hate it, which is fair enough. I haven't done a great job with the argument. To be honest, 10 minutes ago, I had a lot more in me. I thought it was going to be better too. But but if you're still listening and you still hate the ending, let me ask you, have you stayed to the end of the credits?
Mhm.
Yes, you
'Cause it
have?
actually
Well, fuck.
ties it in together. It
Right.
really does.
It is, to me, is a quintessential part of the ending, and it is like the cherry on top. It's what closes it off. It's so okay.
Mhm.
So at the end of the credits, okay, sorry, let me back up. Right before the credits, what you're assuming happened. Dolores, you send off each character. Ransom gets an awesome end. He gets to go back to the circus and be less of a dick to everybody and not get cursed because he's
Oh,
just like,
yeah.
hey, let me have
And
one
you
last
get to
show.
play through it.
Right? Yeah, you get to
I
play
have to
through it.
say,
Please.
when we didn't record last weekend, I actually missed all of those extra endings. I did Dolores first, and it tells you to save, which I did, right? I did her first, the game was over, and I came back on the episode we didn't record, obviously, with Paul, and I'm like, hey, what happened to everybody's endings? And he's like, you see them when you finish the game? And I'm like, but I did finish the game, which is in here where A, they do tell you to save, fair enough, but B, I feel it was a little bit, it was misdirected a little. Like, okay, I should have clued in there was a lot of loose ends and I should have done other stuff first. But at the same time, I kind of wish you, since they were fourth wall breaking anyways, forced you into some sort of an order.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head because I was gonna
Mhm.
argue like from a developmental standpoint, I've had to code things into the game I'm making and look at them and be like, wow, like most people aren't gonna see you and that sucks because you're
Mhm.
hilarious or you're one of my favorite bits
Mhm.
or whatever. And I just like I can't force them to see everything I want them to see. And so I was just thinking
Mhm.
like, well, they to give it like an organic ending, they can't like force you to not do Dolores first. But like you just said, the whole thing is so fourth wally, especially at this point in the game where the
Mhm.
curtains pulled back already. Like, why not
Yeah.
just be like? I would just have her say a single line, like, "Oh, you sure?" Like not even stop you,
Mhm.
but warn you first. So like the first time
Yeah.
you
Are
try
you
to click her,
sure?
yeah, are you sure you want to do me?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like I think we'd all pick up on it, and they could write something better than we can come up with literally on the fly. But the point being is
Mhm.
that I think you're right. It's so fourth wally, they should kind of warn you because otherwise, if you do Dolores first, the game ends. But anyway, okay, so everybody's gets their ending. Reyes is a little weird because his doesn't involve his dad. What did you think about that before I bum rush us to the ending?
Right. All of a sudden, his father worked at the pillow factory. And
Right.
there was, or something, there
No,
was
you're
there
right.
was a family member involved, and he
Yeah.
was closely connected, and all of a sudden his goal was to find innocence for him, and I guess they ended up with a certificate or something that justified the ending, but I didn't fully grasp how he was connected, why he was there, how his parent was involved. It was all a little confusing for me.
Yeah, the agents were probably the thinnest written, I would say, as far as that's concerned, because like
Mhm.
Agent Ray, the female, just kind of well, she requests to be uploaded out of the game, um, which she kind of is, and then Reyes, yeah, it didn't lend the closure to the dad story, which they did kind of shoehorn in, but not in a
Mhm.
bad
A
way. It was
little.
just, yeah, I think maybe if anything, that's a casualty to how many characters there were in the game, but and kind of
Mhm.
striving to give them all meaning and give them all a little bit of time. Um, and I think it was
Yeah,
all
when do you
handled.
want this game to be released, right? Like, geez,
Yeah, yeah,
if they go
exactly.
any further, we're getting the game next week.
Yeah, exactly. And it's to in their defense, I think it was all handled quite well. It's just there's always going to be
Mhm.
which one or two was handled the least, or just given the least, and in this case it was definitely the agents. But anyway, I expected his to be a little more father-centric, but it wasn't really. But Ransom's was really, really nice. I thought that was a great tie. So was Franklin, too, where he gets to have a moment with Dolores. And like I promised earlier when we talked about Dolores, is that the way she forgives her dad is very authentic. Like, it just, again, it really shows like what a well-sculpted character she was. Because like the way she forgives him is so casually real. Like it's not like blowing it off or like stuffing it deep down inside and just saying the right thing. She really just, you believe her when she's just like, Dad, it's okay. Like it's cool.
Did you feel it?
Yeah.
Did you feel kind of sad after that conversation?
Definitely.
Like, that's really it. That's the last time she's going to talk to her dad. Like, I had to sit there for a moment with like my hand on my heart, kind of like, ah, like, and it wasn't that it didn't feel resolved. Like you said, it felt fully resolved and emotional and good, but so final. Oh, it hurts.
And credit to her voice actor, who's just phenomenal. All the voice acting in this game really is Hollywood. It's all blockbuster.
Super good.
I can't even say one above any of the others. They're all that well done. But Dolores' voice actor in I don't get yelled at. I got so scared when I just said that. Her
heart's pounding.
I kind of like the rush, so I'm not going to cut it. No, but Dolores' voice actor is in that, especially in that scene, is brilliant. Like, really delivers the feel. There's something like deeply authentic about the way she lets him off the hook. With impact. But anyway, okay, so at the very, very end of the credits, if you stick around, basically, damn it, I did it again. Let me back up just one tiny step. So sorry, everyone. Okay, after everyone gets their endings, Dolores shuts the whole AI, the whole system down. So the idea is
after going through like a weird, like a land of what was it? It was the land of concept art. Yeah. And you could go in a few different places. It didn't lock you out. But if you went to the mansion where there's actually nothing to forward the plot at all, you get like the Easter egg where Nurse Edna comes and chases you out of the kitchen. And it's amazing. It actually makes your heart jump because in Maniac Mansion, you're like, oh shit, I'm going to lose another character right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. You're right. They get you twice, like, but 35 years later in the same kitchen. It's so good. That's so charming. The whole wireframe world, like I don't know, from like from a dev point of view, and I know Anna, you've always been deeply, endlessly fascinated with behind the curtain stuff with adventure games, and thank God for that for my own selfish reasons, because you maintain interest in development of my game, but I know you can just appreciate that as much as I did at the time, where it's just so cool. Not only is it supposed wireframe or sketches, it's more almost a Maniac Mansion rendering of the world, like a 1985 EGA rendering, maybe a little lower res, but still. And that's just like super fun. And so you go through a rough sketch version of the ending and shut the machine down that way, which is again just this is all very well thought out, whether you like it or not. Like, this is just very well
just
thought out. Just take it. Say you like it, motherfucker.
It's all right. Lots of people have left by now. You're fine.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so anyway, you get through the ending. God damn it, they shouldn't have left before they heard this next part. It's gonna blow their wood of mind. See, come back. She shuts the whole thing down, and the end credits roll, and you get all the way through the credits, and all of a sudden this old Commodore 64 screen comes up, and it's just like it runs like a recovery on the files that Dolores deleted. And you just see it so scrolling, and it's all the real file names. From a nerdy point of view, is super satisfying, because I'm like, I saw like an OGG end of wave, and I'm like, okay, so they use both too. Because I'm like, OGG is really well compressed, but sometimes you don't want it really well compressed. So it's like, can I use both? And then Ron Gilbert's like, yeah, you can and you should. And so you see all the PNG and a couple like file names, and that is like actually from their sprite sheets and stuff, which is very just nerdily satisfying. And then it runs recovery, and there's somebody typing, from behind the fourth wall, running these commands, and they boot it up at the very, very end, and it loops back to the start screen perfectly, as it would, which is just brilliant, because then it's basically saying that Dolores failed, and she did not shut it down. The recovery was run on it, and now it's looped back. And I think I'm so charmed by it, because at the end of the credits and the end of all that nonsense would be the game loops back to the start screen. Every game does that. That's what it does. Or it gives you a quick command and it boots you out. But usually it would return you to the start screen. So considering it has to do that anyway, the fact that the writers took that and used that as an opportunity to loop the game back to its start again and to indicate that Dolores failed.
And to make the ending more ambiguous. Exactly. Because now there's so much of this game that's the word, ambiguous. There's so much of this game that's just kind of like, I wonder, like, okay, the fuzzy TV screen between the scenes. It's like, is that us watching the game? There's all these random scenes that happen in the game, and your character disappears and then you can't find it, but then he's there all of a sudden, but it actually hasn't happened, that whole mindfuck. And it's like, is that like other people that have played the game and those are the endings they got? Like, how deep into this like 4th level stuff does it go? And I don't even think the developers know. I think they were just messing with us, man.
Are we good? We done?
Wishlist, the Phantom Fellows,
That's
the
the
adventure
thing,
game.
yes.
It's on Steam. You can also wishlist it for the wishlist on GOG if you go there and look it up on the community wishlist and then
It's
put
in
a
the
little
description
thumbs
too.
upvote. Yep, it's in the description. Hit the little upvote. You can also go to phantomfellows.com. It's got a whole website.
I need you to do several things here. First of all, make an account with GOG. Second of all, confirm your email address. I know, that's the worst part of it all. Then you got to log in again, which is annoying because you just signed up, but it's cool. And then
it's a whole thing.
No, but yeah, anyway.
Okay, and when you're done that, when you're done all that work, and when I'm done cutting Paul off again, you got to join you got to join up and check out the Adventure Game Hotspot as well. They're a part of the crew. We run with these guys. They've got like a whole website, and
a whole website. Do they have a whole website?
It's a whole website, and in that website you have access to the Space Quest historian. You've got the Adventure Game Geek, One Short Eye's in there, Conversation with Curtis is in there, Adventure Game Hotspot.
Just one Curtis.
Talks about stuff.
I don't want people going in there expecting more than one Curtis.
Well, and then there's Daniel Abu. There's a bunch of people in there. They're all awesome. Say hi to them and say hi to us. Yeah, on Twitter at CGG Podcast or at Phantom Fellows. You can also join the group. We are a group on Facebook. That's the Classic Gamers Guild and the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. You can go on to Instagram, CGG Podcast. This might not be my best ending. Okay. Email us at mail@theclassicgamersguild.com. And I just want to take a second while I'm talking about the mail to say thank you to a couple of people for writing us. Now, I know we've talked about Brian. Brian, you're great. You've written us before and you've written us again. Brian Manown, he's a musician as well. And the
Zach McCracken song is awesome.
Yeah, he gave us a preview. I don't know if you guys have heard it yet, but we got a preview of the Zach McCracken main theme. Error 47 did one too, as you mentioned. It is super great to listen to. I love your rendition and I love your play along with our game. I just want to quote you. If you go back to a previous episode, you've got Paul Reaching for Shit Volume 4. Paul Reaching for Shit Greatest Hits. Paul Reaching for Shit Volume 5. Paul pulls a muscle in his back. That was a really good one. So thank you so much,
There was
Brian,
a maze in
that,
it, but it was good.
Okay, and Mark, oh my gosh, that also lovely to hear from you. I don't think we've heard from you before, Mark, but you came and you played along with our episode where we were rating games top 5, and you actually gave us your top 5 games. And in no particular order, I've got The Day of the Tentacle, which obviously amazing game. Great job. Have it on the list. The Stanley Parable. My son has played that game numerous times with all of the expansions. It's one of those like total fourth wall kind of breaking games. Speaking of fourth wall kind of games.
Tentacle is in the same mansion as this game. This is all on brand. Good job, everybody.
It's super duper on brand. Very, very, very. You've got Tales from the Borderlands. That's like a Telltale. So it's kind of like a chapter by chapter, quick time event kind of old school puzzle solving game. You've got Paradigm. Paradigm.
You stroked out on me last time you tried to say that too. It's funny.
I know, it's terrible. But you get to explore a Soviet-style alternate universe. And again, it's one of those funny, ridiculous Monty Python, his words, kind of a way. And then Hypnospace. Go ahead.
Sorry, I meant to shout that game out in our funny games episode, Paradigm, because even though I've never played it, that's like ever since it came out, it's like people can't mention funny adventure games without that. So that's the thing I was going to say.
No, I need to play it too. And because of this list, I will. And then you've got Hypnospace Outlaw, who, by the way, I just reinstalled because you mentioned it. It's a game where you're literally out there in the 1990s internet that the game developers created the whole internet. Essentially, you can go to all the places, look at all the things, and you kind of go as an internet police officer and do enforcement. And it's just one of the coolest kind of indie games you've ever seen, especially if you're nostalgic for the 90s. So thank you so much. And as well, in the past, thanks to Rob and Spark for messaging us. We love getting these emails. They make us super happy. We like reading them. We love that people are playing along and caring. It just means so much. I can frame this stuff and put it on the wall. It makes me feel so good. And speaking of making us feel good, it really makes us feel good when you support the show if you're able to. Shh, it's all right. It's all right. Come out onto Patreon and make us feel real good. And support us out there, patreon.com, Classic Gamers Guild. We've actually got some lovely people out there that are already supporting us, but I don't have the page up in front of me.
Oh, darn. I was hoping we could spend 15 minutes on that, just such a bummer that we can't stay.
But thank you so much for supporting the show. And I'd also like to say thank you to everybody in the extra special thanks tier. Thanks so much to Michael Council, Brian Manown, and let's see. Oh, Mark Fillion, you're also in there. And how can I drag this on longer? But no, seriously, thank you to all of you for supporting the show and being so awesome. I'd like to say the show wouldn't happen without you, just to make you feel good. So there it is. I did say it. I hope it felt good to hear it.
People?
No, we're good now. Yeah, no, this is good. So thank you so much for joining us in this episode, Paul. Make it stop.
Don't do a murder. Don't do a murder.